Hello everyone, and let's go to the new video. Today I want to show you a very spectacular line for bullet and blitz games. It's against Pirc's opening. You know that in the channel you can find the Mad Dog, you can find the modern approach with bishop e3 without f3. You have few more videos like bayonet attack and stuff, but this one is special. I was using this one, I believe, around 2020, 2021 during Corona, and it's very efficient in blitz and bullet games. It's called Austrian attack, but as a part of the Austrian attack, there is a 7th move h4 that David Bronstein played in Olympiad back to 1958, I believe. And let's immediately get to the point. e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, and f4. This pawn storm in the center is named Austrian attack. You know, it's pretty difficult for black to fight against all these pawns in the center, but from another point of view, it's very demanding when white actually pushes all these pawns, and these pawns can be very exposed. So after bishop g7, knight f3, castles, along with the main move that Karyakin likes to do, bishop to d3, and some other possibilities at this moment, bishop e3, bishop e2, there is a very interesting move, e5. e5 immediately kicks the knight away from f6, and now you just have two options. Actually, you have three options. You have the main one, knight f to d7, which is going to be covered later, and you have suspicious 198, and d takes e5, another classic approach by black players. So let's go with the weakest one of all. We always begin with the worst possibilities and then go with the main ones. Against 98, Bronstein variation, and Bronstein, you know, like move h4 works fully efficiently. Why? Because there is no knight on f6 to control the h5, so you can easily push your pawn all the way up to h5, and of course you just want to play h5, you just want to take on g6 and then have an open h-file and take advantage of it. After h4, there are following possibilities. The most logical one, if you ask me, is bishop g4, and that's the most common thing in practice by black. They just want to say, hey buddy, where are you going? I'm going to stop with my bishop. No, you won't stop it. I'll play h5. That's the point. And I'll show you a game between Friedman and Elvest. That was a blitz game in Vladimir Petrov Memorial 2015. And this guy just said, okay, I'll capture by pawn. And this is also a very good example of how should you play when they capture by pawn, how should you fight against these broken pawns on h5 and h7, and how to actually penetrate onto the king side when black has, at the moment, relatively tough to crack bishop g4 and h5 structure. You always play bishop e2. And the very simple move is either knight g5 or knight h2, exchanging the light square bishops, and when you exchange them, you're just having a very, very nice game, and everything works perfectly fine. So after like c5, this guy played d5. Take a look at the white center. It's very powerful. Knight e7, knight g5. Now you're exchanging these bishops, and of course, if you exchange the bishops, the mate is coming very, very soon. Also, you have e6 threats, so they just have to go with h6, bishop g4, h takes, and he didn't probably see the queen d3 trick, because usually that queen to d3 trick is what wins the game for white. They cannot take because of checkmate. You threaten checkmate yourself, and on top of all that, when they play f5 to defend it, you have knight e6 to win an exchange. And in 14 moves, GM was dead winning against another guy. If they capture by bishop, I believe that you know the answer and you shouldn't hesitate. You should just sack on h5. And by sacking this exchange, they just have to capture. You play knight g5. Now you want to play both queen h5 and bishop to d3. When they play h6, you just play this one. Now let me just show you the game from Brazil 2000 between two random guys. Okay, white player was pretty good, 1 FM. H takes g5, bishop d3. He's threatening to mate on h7, and after f5, boom, bishop c4, and this guy Teixeira won the game on the spot. So just like you see, full of nice tricks. So if e6, knight goes back to d7. This is my game against Thomas on chess.com 2019. So you see, I even played during the 2019. Knight d7, bishop e3, queen e7, long castles. And you know, I may be down in exchange, but somehow I very much enjoy and like my position. All I want to do here is place my light square bishop somewhere, ideally on d3, and go with g4, g5, rook h1, or rook g1, depending on circumstances on the board. The guy played c5, d takes, I played g4, played g5, and when he captured, I recapture, threatening mate, bishop d3, and rook g1, because he can't stop knight h7, he resigned. What am I trying to show you with these games? First of all, that it's a very intuitive system for playing. It's very easy for playing, with lots of, I'd say, very logical, not too difficult stuff, and it's pretty at the same time it's pretty ambitious, tricky, tactical, but somehow I really like these intuitive systems where simply your hand actually goes by itself, and it looks pretty easy for playing. So all things considered, I just showed you what are you supposed to do if they go with that idea when they play bishop g4. Let's say they go h5. Here I have a specialty. I played 2 games, and of course if they're h5, it's very logical. You can't push h5. They just have control of g4. Everything seems to be working perfect. You play bishop to e3. The plan behind bishop e3 is to play queen d2 long castles, and then to see how are they going to develop themselves and to know what to do and how to play afterwards. So after like bishop e3, my opponent played c6. Logical move. He wants to either, I don't know, get in outpost d5 or to play b5 afterwards. I played queen d2, knight c7, long castles, and the guy played b5. I said, okay, not a big deal. Let me just complete my development. Brought my knight back to e2, played f5, breaking onto the king side and opening this like this way. After b3, this was his attempt to accelerate things on the queen side, but it doesn't work. Simply a4. I just decided to play bishop h6, close the a file with a3, captured on g7, and after I played knight g3, I just had knight takes h5, followed by queen g5. The game took place on chess.com 2021. And just like you see, a very logical, very solid, very intuitive moves, and you're just winning your games. In case bishop g4, I found a game between 2 guys. Of course, you always play bishop e2, followed by knight g5. This guy played knight e7, knight g5, exchanging and removing the defender. Bishop e2, queen takes e2, and after c5, boom, e6. And they can't do anything. A point of this game was that this guy saw that after c takes d4, he had a fork, and that really looks good, and thought that everything was fine. But you remember what I tell you at the beginning of this lecture, that usually this queen d3 move wins the games in this system, and that's what happened in that game once again. And finally, if on h4 they just go with c5, makes sense according to old Noveltys rule. When somebody plays on the wing, another side should be playing through the center. Of course, you play h5, and after like c takes, queen takes. That's Bronstein's idea. You can't capture because the queen is hanging, but when you play knight c6, Bronstein's idea is hide your queen on f2, go on h4, play h takes g6, and mate these patsers. So after bishop f5, h takes, if bishop g6, g4, and mate them, they can't touch the pawn on e5. If f takes g6, knight g5, threatening knight h7, rook h7, bishop c4, queen h4, g4. I mean, zillions of threats, and here, of course, white is completely winning. Just because of that, it's a very simple line for playing, and knight e8 doesn't seem to be working. On d takes e5, you have two approaches. You have more solid and less risky, tiny but long-lasting advantage for white with d takes e5. It's a little bit boring, and then you can capture by both king and knight. If king captures, it should go back to e1 and f2 afterwards, which is a little bit better for white. Don't worry about that. Let's say they move the knight, you just play king e1, you play bishop c4, play rook f1, and keeping the solid pawn structure, play bishop e3, king f2, and white is a little bit better. Another line is if after queen d1 you recapture by knight, then after knight d5 you kick the knight away. So after knight b4 you play knight to e3 with a little bit better. If knight b6 you play knight c3 followed by bishop e3, and what has a little bit better game. Yes, they do have a good light square bishop. They have problems with knight on b6, and I'd say pretty big problems with the bishop on g7, which is one of really main pieces for every Pirc player. And instead of this, you can play, for example, f takes e5, which I really like a lot more because I keep the queens on the board. Once again, I'm not saying that the seventh move, d takes e5, is not bad, not even suspicious by white. It's just more solid and less a risky approach, and where you exchange the queens. This f takes e5 keeps the queens on the board, and you just go with this. I played so many games like this, and you know, here and there you win some, you lose some, but in Bullet and Blitz, if you know your stuff, it almost works perfectly fine. After bishop c4, they gotta defend it, or they just have to take on c3. If they take on c3, bishop g4, you just win the bishop pair and have an easy game along the f file and the bishop pair. If they play c5, you play short castle followed by knight g5, and everything seems to be working perfectly fine. I'll show you a game against some guy, Papa Mishki, played on League Chessmate 2020. The guy played knight c6. I played knight g5, threatening on f7 by rook, knight, and bishop. The guy played e6, and here I won the game in 17 moves. But I'm okay. I'll show you. Knight e4. He captured. I played bishop g5. He played like this. I played knight f6. He played king h8. I played queen g4. Played queen h4. Brought my bishop back. Sacked my bishop, or I was supposed to sack my bishop here, and my opponent resigned. So that was my game. But better way of playing after e6 is overprotecting d4 square with the bishop on e3 and repositioning your knight on e4 in absolutely safe mode. And then you would just bring your knight back to e4 and play bishop g5 next. After like knight e7, knight e4, I'll show you the game between Kollars and Popov. The guy played knight f5, Kollars played bishop g5, and when the guy played queen a5, boom, g4, knight, he has nowhere to go, knight h6, knight f6, queen f3, queen h3, and so many other things, and they're just collapsing. Kollars won. Another game is queen c7, you just give check, recapture by bishop, go with queen d2, threatening rook f5 followed by queen h6. When they play king h7, you want to take like this and play rook to f3, queen h6, rook h3 mate, or rook h3 with mating threats. So just like you see, it's very difficult for them to play this position, and they literally have only one move, bishop g4, in which case you play h3, take like this, and now once again there is only one move, knight c6, where they go after the d4 square and kind of sack the pawn on f7. When you play bishop f7, e6, he takes d4. I'm just going a little bit faster throughout this game. I played few games like this. My opponent captured like this, and I always had, even though according to the engine with brilliant play by both sides, it should be drawn, I believe from human point of view, white always can push more in this type of games. All things considered, you've seen both knight e8, and d takes e5. Time to check the knight after d7 and to actually go into the topic of this lecture. It's called Bronstein attack or wild approach by David Bronstein that he actually went for in 1958 in his famous game against Palmiotta. Sorry, 1955, I apologize. And basically, after knight after d7, David Bronstein played h4. Nowadays, you have bishop c4. I believe that on Chessable channel I covered this bishop c4 book, and you can even find it as a part of the PGN. It's a nice Chinese move, bishop c4, very popular one by white players and scores really good in practice. And I also have a PGN about it, so don't bother to ask. And after like knight after d7, you just go with h4. The idea behind h4 is very obvious. You just want to push your pawn to h5. You just want to afterwards go with the attack along the h file. And now you'll see analysis full of novelties. So get ready for really top-notch stuff, and you're going to like this one. For example, they have 3 moves. We're going to begin with 2 suspicious ones. Knight b6, like I'm opening up my bishop, I'm solving the problems of e6 potential ideas. Of course, it doesn't solve the problem of h5, which is initially what we really want to do. Bishop g4, we capture, they capture like this. Of course, they shouldn't be able to capture, I mean, they can capture as well, but h takes g6, that's absolutely another kind of a thing, but it doesn't bring them any luck, and it's just a normal thing. I would just go bishop e2, move the knight to g5 and exchange. Well, at the same time, I can just say that if you like, you can also go with bishop d3, but then you have more difficulties to unpin your queen. And that's why some other guys also like to consider bishop e3, queen d2, long castle, and to carry on. But nobody likes to take by each pawn and to literally give us chance to mate them. There is one last thing here. It's queen e2, where your queen actually goes on f2 and goes on h4. Probably that could be one of the nicest and maybe fastest ways to go along the h file and attack there. So after h takes g6, play queen e2, queen f2. If f takes g6, nobody ever came up with the following novelty. Rook h4. You're just chasing this bishop. And now bishop has to decide whether, of course, if you take on f3, that's disaster because we capture, we end up with a bishop pair, threaten on b7. So when they play d takes, f takes, and if they play bishop e5, I like bishop d2. I'm down a pawn on purpose. I want to make the long castle. I want to complete development. Somehow with the bishop pair, long castle, weak king on g8, everything seems to look so bad about this position for them. Another thing is knight c6, bishop e3, d takes to capture an e5. They capture an e5, queen h3. Now you threaten the knight and the pawn on f7. You play bishop to d3 to once again be able to go with long castle before you go with the mating threats on the king side and along the h file. And after knight b6, h5, bishop g4, h takes, f takes, rook h4, I believe it's way better to play h5. But it's way better. It's not way better. Everything is so nice and so good and somehow goes without much problems for white, whether they play h5 or bishop takes f3. Point is, rook h4 is such a big novelty. Just like I'm telling you, no one ever played. So rook takes g4, knight g5. You want to recapture like this. You want to go with the bishop on c4. If you move this knight away, you want to go queen d3, queen g6. It's completely waiting for white. And that's what happens after knight b6. Another way is h5. Like, hey Maya, watch out, I'm gonna stop you. No, you won't stop me, my friend. Now I'm gonna show you. Engines all the time show first sack the pawn and go with bishop d3, and then go with rook h3, include rook g3 to go after the g6 pawn. And now everybody would say, okay, but what if this? Then you go this, and when they play like this, remove the knight with knight on h2. I played one game like this, and it's a very nice and simple. But first, I actually went with a game that is one of my favorite examples in the whole Bronstein attack opus here by White. I first game played G4, and then I checked with the engines that this G4 is not like the move of the highest rate according to the engines, but somehow I really enjoy the following type of things. So after G4, H takes, knight G5, we just want to collect the pawn on G4, and uh, just take a look at this. When they play like knight B6, you just go H5, and you just have an attack. But one of my opponents captured an E5, like I captured one pawn, now I'm capturing and breaking his center. I played H5. The guy captured D4. I played G6. The guy captured D takes E3. And he forgot about my next move. He forgot about my next move. It's queen to D3. I knew about this idea. It's not even difficult to find it because point is if they take can I go with queen c5 or queen d5 mate, but I can also go with the queen g6. But of course I'm gonna go with this and it's mate. After queen d3, if my opponent played knight c6, I captured, and probably he thought, but what after queen h7? There is no mate. There is no also rook h8 because the king doesn't have to take. Bishop is gonna take, but they forgot about queen g6. And now you threaten rook h8 because they cannot capture by bishop, and you basically want to take on f7. You want to go rook h8, and the mate was inevitable. It's this is how few bullet and blitz games of mine happen. And you know what? Even though I know that the g4 is just a little bit weaker than the thing e6 at this moment, I'm talking about this e6. I always go with g4 because I'm always, like enjoying in these positions when I sack the opponent, just looking for the same kind of a tricks. If knight b6, h5, queen to d3, mate, e takes, they take by rook, and somehow I always enjoy these type of games. I also had one of my bullet games going like this. Just like I'm telling you, so many games you're gonna have in similar fashion, and you're just going to have such a big joy playing these type of games. And finally, if h4, and they just go with the best move c5. So you're going for the wing attack along the h file, while your opponent just breaks in the center with c5. Makes perfect sense. A classic approach from the famous game between Bronstein and Palmiotta was h5, and after c takes, queen takes, and after d takes c5, you just bring the queen back to f2, and that's what happened in that famous game, and Bronstein won. Nowadays, you have theoretical recommendation by black with e4, and things are not that easy anymore. So when you play knight e4, they just go fast knight f6. Now your knight is under the attack. You gotta capture. They take by pawn. They want to go rook e8. And I played few games like this, and sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. Position is okay. There is one thing that I don't like about this game, is the possibility for black to attack us, and there is definitely a lack of the knight on the queen side. Although, according to the engines, these positions are with mutual chances and completely unclear. And that's why I'm going to show you once again a top-notch thing here. So after h4, c5, first e6, according to my latest analysis, e6 is way better than something else. So when you play e6, now the question is what to do. Of course they should take, but let's say they're just, for some reason, they just believe us and they just decide to move the knight here. You take, you play d takes e5 because the queen is hanging, you play knight e5 harassing the rook, you play h5 because you're happy to sack on h5 if they capture by knight. After this you include the bishop d3, threaten the rook h5, and I very much enjoy white's game. That's why I believe that after e6 they gotta capture. When the capture happens, you just go with h5. And in a game like this, We really have to consider two moves. C takes d4 and G takes h5. C takes d4 is not a good move because you capture by knight. You now threaten knight e6. They gotta go with knight f6. Bishop d4 just doesn't make sense, and it just gives us an easy game with the bishop pair. Yes, we're down the pawn, but we have an amazing attack along the h file. And when they play like knight c5, h takes, queen g4, we have a massive attack. And I don't think they can easily defend this position. King f7, rook h8. Even on this one, you can take on g7 and play b4 like I had fun in one of my bullet games. Just like you see, you just have to be creative to go with some spectacular things there, and to enjoy your chess, and to actually have a lot of freedom when it comes to sacrifices, and to say, I'm just going to have a game full of, you know, like mutual joy. And the thing is, knight f6, h takes, bishop d3, knight f3 to go knight h4. That's a very powerful idea. It's not easy to find. I played a couple of games, then I played bishop e3, then I played queen e2, then I played another game, even some stupid knight b5. And then I saw that something was wrong about this, that I couldn't do much. Sometimes they break with e5, sometimes knight c6, sometimes some other stuff. And then I just checked on the engines. I was shocked when the engine showed me knight f3, going to h4, and going after the potentially weak pawn on g6. And that way, you actually go after the king as well. So after h5, they're not supposed to play c takes d4 because it gives us relatively good defensive chances. So after h takes g takes h5, I once again have my own novelty and move that no one ever used. So it's knight jumps to e4. Somehow, my logic here when I analyze these games was, let me just transfer all my pieces onto the king side and to go after the h5, h7, and e6. So if h6, to stop that, I'll take by rook, take on c5, and then you have so many weak pawns and in general weak king. If you play knight f6, I'll capture, go bishop d3, and I'm just going after the h5 and h7. And if you finally go what everybody does almost without any thinking, I play bishop d3. And if h6 to stop knight g5, now you say no, maybe you do it to stop it, but I won't stop. So you just go with this, and you want to take on h5. They gotta play knight f6. I analyzed something crazy like this, and this is just so nice. Long castles, rook g1, g4 breaking on the king side. It's so nice, and somehow, once again, we can say that it's going to be position played by itself. So after knight e4, c takes, bishop d3, knight c6, knight g5, threatening e6, h7, and h5, knight b4, taking on e6. This is the top engine line. Queen a5, bishop d2, they go knight e5. I analyzed knight to d3 because I played quite a few number of similar continuations. Then you just go with knight g7, king g7, if queen d3, knight f2, and rook h5. You just have so much better, almost completely winning game. And that's why after knight e4, c takes, bishop d3, just to repeat and to be able to cope with these lines easier. Knight c6, knight g5, threatening on h5, knight b4, killing one of our best pieces in the game. So knight e6, bishop d2, they go knight e5. This knight e5 is the really top move. And when you take, they take, you take, you want to go with mate almost on h7. The queen is now hanging, and now we go with short castle and rook a to e1. Too many things I wanted to show you throughout this lecture about the Pirc Austrian attack. Too many things I wanted to, you know, like simply for you to actually be able to observe and to be able to simply go with this line in your practice. If you really want to get better, if you really want to look at deeper analysis, let me know and you can get a PGN. As you know, I'm selling pro PGNs for the all kinds of levels, and you always can improve your chess and opening perhaps that way. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.